Maybe our job now is as art and science lovers, it's to facilitate this encountering. Start a conversation, take a coffee. And this way, if you are in the same environment, this is much more easy to happen. You immediately recognize this kind of curiosity in people.
My guest today is Francesco Scarel, an art science curator whose path has taken him through more disciplines than most people touch in a lifetime. And when you ask him how he got from one to the next, his answer isn't a plan. It's serendipity and a willingness to experiment without knowing where it leads. This conversation gets into what it can look like to build a life fueled by experimentation, how to create the conditions for the unexpected to show up, and what happens when you let go of the need to have it all figured out. I'm your host, Nicia John, and this is episode 4 of Art-Sci Currents. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for hopping on this call. I think you've done so much work that's so inspirational across so many different niches and so many different kinds of sciences with chemistry and now technology and neuroscience. First, I'd like to dive into how you got into such a wide array of different sciences and what that's like for you in navigating those different fields.
When I started chemistry, it was just because I like to explore things that I don't really see. So molecules are not visible, but they build up all our worlds. And that was one of my first love. But then, of course, by doing it, learning it, and studying it a lot till the PhD, then, of course, you discover that every study, every research, they are inside a macro world of rules. What I was studying, researching, I kept that kind of idea of being free to research what I want. And suddenly it became clear especially after a workshop I did with this professor from MIT, Felice Frankel. And I got to know a bit more about what other people do with scientists extra laboratory. How do we communicate research? Is it necessary? Yes, it is. To who? In which way? And I have always been this guy that's never been completely 100% into something, because I always left something of my creativity for something else. As long as you go, then you feel that you are not this and not that, you are in the middle, and it's kind of frustrating somehow until you recognize that exactly is there where you have to be, in the middle of things, in between disciplines and so on. And this workshop with the Felice Franklin had this kind of power. And that's why I finished the PhD and I start to see other people like me. After this, you learn more and more, you discover more people. They have the completely diverse background and biases. And after that, discover that actually I love science. Somehow I love what science brings to people. And I discovered that every research center, university, they have this kind of third mission, it's called. So they have to speak about what they do. And most of the time they do it by publishing. And then I discover, there is this master in science communication. And then you discover that dissemination is not really communication. Dissemination is something that you put from above to down, like top-down level, and communication is same line. It was like a liberatory moment, because I was not forced by anybody to be there and to be specialized and to be inside those kind of walls, restricted walls. It is very well known that somehow they don't cut the freedom, but they limit it. What I know is that everything changed after Second World War. Scientists have always been these people discovering things and dealing with things that nobody understands. Were inside universities or laboratories, hidden from the society. But what came out after Second World War was the atomic bomb. People started to think, but this scientist may be dangerous. So this was like a step away from society. After this, also research started to be financed by states, and then freedom of research was limited. And of course, then people started to think we need to communicate what we do, otherwise people are kind of suspicious.
I like that you pulled on that thread about what happened after World War II and how people reacted to science, because I think it comes back to what you were saying earlier about communication being at the same level so that people could understand things differently. But I'd love to go back to your filmmaking experience, because you went from such an intense focus in this chemistry role, and then you had this change of mind where you're now open to doing filmmaking. What was that filmmaking process like? Were you creating works that were particularly on science? Were you just now freely creating things that were beyond science? What was that period like?
No, science was the last thing it was in my mind. That if you change, you have to do it properly. I met some people in documentary filmmaking, and they were working on a social level. So I started with that, and I kept with that because I was feeling kind of empty. All my knowledge was not useful. So I needed also to feed myself. But basically what we were doing was simply teaching Italian. So in this way it was engaging and people were learning much faster. We projected the organs of the human body on the people. Just they have to go to the doctor. They have to express themselves. Very experimental because, of course, experimentation was the basic of the research, and then I wouldn't get rid of that. I didn't want to get rid of that. So it was a hard time, but yeah, still learning.
Now you're pulling in so many different parts of art and science and your experience in filmmaking, but also in visual installations. Like, how did you get to that point now of like, okay, I did the science, I did the filmmaking, now I want to put it all together?
After 10 years of filmmaking, I found this master in science communication, very prestigious one. I never heard about it. And after that, everything changed because now I teach there. It gave me a big perspective of what I am. It was nice. Some still PhD students that not happy about what they do, so they start something else. But other people were from academia, artistic academia in Venice. Yeah, it was very diverse, but it changed a bit the perspective. What does it mean to speak about science and which way? Because now I know that to speak from above to below is not good.
I'm coming from a master's in psychology with more of a motor neuroscience focus. And for a while there, I was looking for a PhD that was particularly in dance neuroscience. And I was having a hard time finding a supervisor who would support my project idea because of just the extent of getting dancers in and that kind of thing. And there are people who are doing that, but for some reason it just wasn't happening for me. I finally decided in the end to now do a program called Interdisciplinary Societies, Arts and Sciences. And I went to a workshop where they have people just discussing and sharing their work. And I feel like these are the kinds of environments where I feel most excited about because there's so many different people coming in with different perspectives. You get to be challenged and your ideas are pulled on. And you seem to do a lot of that in your own work as well through the people that you mentor. What are the environments that you think are necessary to hear other people out?
Mhm. You need an environment that teaches you how to listen, to know how to listen to people. Forget a bit about your own ego. To collaborate with somebody is much better, much more interesting, and a lot of ideas can come out. Much more than just you yourself. During my PhD in Germany, the environment was multidisciplinary, but it was forced to be. Okay, now we go to the meeting of the guy there because he has to speak about life science, and the physicist said, I don't care about life science. I have my work to do and I don't have time and so on. So if it's forced to be, that it didn't work. That's why, I mean, you need an open space where you can also free to make mistakes, to get points down, say, maybe this is not true, maybe we can think again. If you have this in an environment, if you have this kind of freedom, you raise the chances for serendipity to happen, which is one thing that I want to point out. Serendipity is something that you don't know that you don't know. There is something to discover in this room between me and you, maybe, and we still don't know what it is. But the more we speak, and if the environment actually is very creative, it happens that we have more chances to discover what it is. And this is the same when you apply artistic way of thinking to scientific way of thinking. Match these people together. There is, in a good environment of communication, exchange, less ego, listening, you rises this opportunity of serendipity. And most of the interesting and top level discoveries from science has been done by this, which is not a chance only. It's not by random chance. It's just that you have to be aware of what you do, what you are, and as soon as something else pops up in your environment, you are able to recognize that this is a new discovery, and maybe a new path of research, an idea of thinking, lateral thinking. This, I think, is important.
So then we talk though about having places where they say there's interdisciplinary work, but there really isn't, and then having places that are super, super open and creative and freeing. But is there a way that you can design that kind of serendipity to actually come about?
You cannot design maybe, but you can facilitate. When you are in that environment, which is multidisciplinary just because you have many people inside a space, even if they are in their own offices, they gravitate around a single space. Maybe our job now is to, as art and science lovers, it's to facilitate this encountering. start a conversation, take a coffee. And this way, if you are in the same environment, this is much more easy to happen. You immediately recognize this kind of curiosity in people.
Quick question. Have you ever felt like the only person in the room who cares about the logic and the creativity, the experiment and the exhibition, the data set and the performance? Well, you're not alone, you just haven't found your people yet. The CREMAP Directory of Innovators and Art Scientists is the CreArt Foundation's global directory of multidisciplinary minds, a searchable, growing community of practitioners who live exactly at that intersection. Create your free profile, get discovered, and find collaborators who actually speak your interdisciplinary language. To learn more, head to creart.ca/cremap, that's creart.ca/CREMAP, and join the network.
Why I'm so curious about life? Maybe it's the way I grew up, the way you learn. This may have a role in your way of being or not open-minded. Maybe also it's a privilege if you're a kid and you are allowed to be creative, then you don't forget about it. Never. So it's a privilege, I think, to be able to do what we do now, what we like to do. That's for sure. I mean, also scientists that are really focused on what they do, it's not that they don't like to create, but they are afraid to get detached from their own world, their own establishment. The rules that they are used to follow is a comfort zone for them. And so if you try to get them out of the comfort zone, they got scared. Are you able to step out of your comfort zone? You don't have to be liked by everybody. Actually, it's better not. So it's okay. I think now I'm finding, I spend less time finding the right people and get them when it's ready, when I have something ready for them. Once I was in this astrophysical center, and they have this telescope. An artist from hereby Slovenia had the idea, and they developed this artistic idea of a probe to send in space with inside some plants and with sensors that are able to change the atmosphere inside this probe, okay, where the plants are. So this probe just sent in the space looking for an exoplanet. This probe finds out like a real nice exoplanet with a slightly different atmosphere. It sounds like a scientific plan or research, but it was in the mind of an artist. Why I told these people in the telescope center, if we can expose this kind of idea and the probe itself that was built, and the answer was, okay, but what is the artistic research here? They said, we don't understand.
I think that's such an interesting thing that I feel like the art and the science, or the artist's brain and the scientist's brain, if you call it that, they really start from a similar point of view where it's like, I have a question. How does this work? Can I recreate this? Can I do this in a different way? I'd love to learn how you, or hear more about how you use this in your work as a curator, because you also do a lot of art science curation and with supporting people who are actually putting artworks into public spaces. Who are the kinds of people that you get to work with? And what is that process of curation like in developing the idea so that it actually gets put out into the world?
Yeah, one way is to have an artist with something in mind, and then you just match the right scientist or the right group of scientists. And then you can ask, look, I found this possibility. I have my fundings. I can pay for this artist. Do you agree to open your lab? Most of the time they say yes, but you have to oversee all the time, try to limit frictions and so on. So this is one thing, but which is actually the most easy. But when I'm working with territory here, that's different. Then you start from the territory needs or something that happens in your territory. You may have an idea of how to match this need with something that you have in mind. Also, then you ask an artist if he wants to collaborate and so on. But first, you have to know what's going on there. And most of the time, the people agree because it's something that is used for them also to enhance what they do. And so it's a long work of managing, of call the guy and maybe we can do, okay, write down a proposal, but most of the time they don't read it. So maybe it's better to put images. So that's the work. But then it's the work that brings you much more satisfaction.
Think that process is so interesting that you really have to have the language of both parties or different people and different labs so that you can really allow this curation to produce something that is meaningful or fruitful.
Yeah. But not all the time it works. Sometimes it's like a drop. People are not interested or they don't, oh, I'm not able to explain it in the right way. Last year, we had this project with the restoration of a wetland. It means that it was like a crop fields that not cultivated because of climate change, sea level rises. So all the ground was salty. And so nobody will cultivate anymore, nothing. So the natural reserve close by decided to buy this land and convert it again into a wetland, like it was 100 years ago. So it was like a step back. So in the way we understand nature and the way we need it. And by this way, they were completely independent. They would have done it anyway, even without me. The thing was just to add together, hey, can we do it, design it with the school? We take the school of the territory, they come to visit your national park, you explain why wetlands are important, how to build them up. And then maybe I have an idea to a workshop with the kids and they can draw the new aspect of this. And in this way, it was kind of engaging for them. They didn't have to do anything more than what they already had planned to do. It happened very smoothly and very fine. Everybody's happy.
I know you do a lot of work with students and you have your own organization called Liminal Research. I'd love to hear more about that and like why you started that. What are the kinds of works that you try to produce?
Yeah, all the works in the last 2 years has been produced by us. It was like a need of me and other colleagues of mine. We didn't find the right structure, already existing structure that was available or was curious to develop this kind of new language. So yeah, I'm happy about limited research because it's growing, even if I don't recognize it. Immediately. Everything we anticipated 2 years ago has been done. Would love to have it until the end of my life.
I feel the exact same way because the nonprofit started officially about 2 years ago. And you're in the motion, you're doing things, you're talking to people, and then you realize like there really is a community here. Like there are people who are involved and they want to be a part of conversations and to share their stories and to create projects. In your philosophy of how you want to run the middle research and the kinds of people that you attract, what are some things that you really want to put forth in your organization so that the work that you desire to see can actually be done?
Most of the people inside Liminal has already other jobs. We have different goals, but we have just a common way of thinking. All the people who joined, what we share is the same really vision. We like to experiment. To answer you the previous questions about what we do, it's difficult to define, but in generally it's workshops, projects like this one of the new wetland, inventing projects and proposing projects for population for a festival, designing with somebody else. This is the thing. This is what we want to do.
See, I love that the feeling of experimentation is also in your business model because I feel like sometimes, if you create a nonprofit or an organization, you have a set goal, a set vision, and you're trying to get there. And maybe sometimes that doesn't always align with the community that you're trying to serve. You talked about engaging with students for younger and how you want to shape their thinking about integration or just openness to interdisciplinary work.
The approach is not to shape somebody else's mindset, but is to extract something which is already there. People I think, are curious by default. Human beings are curious. Babies have their eyes watching everywhere. So maybe this kind of curiosity is just a bit silent. When we do workshops where I also teach, it's not like I just say to people what I think or how the things must be done or should be done, but it's more asking questions and extract what they would like to do and which ideas they have. And what the other role of the teacher, I think, is just to, shape it a bit, not just to put a boundaries here and there, because also a creative mind could be too creative. And in the end, you wander with your thoughts and nothing concrete happens.
Interdisciplinary ideas are exciting to imagine, but surprisingly hard to build. Not because the idea isn't good, but because without a clear structure, even the most compelling concepts can delay. The Art Science in Motion framework is a digital workbook with that structure. 5 guided modules will take you from a scattered idea to a defined, testable proof of concept. Our easy-to-follow worksheets will help you name what you're doing, understand why it matters, and give you a roadmap for all that comes next. Download your copy at creart.ca/store.
Talk a lot about third spaces and the role of these in between spaces to actually curate serendipity, to curate extraction, but not in a bad way, but extraction through knowledge, giving the person the ability to share what they already have within them. Can you talk to that role of third spaces?
Yeah, the principle of the third space, it's like a sociological study that defines a third space what is not home. or workplace. There was this article from Leonardo, this journal from MIT, that was talking about this third space. And this space was just this intersection between the general public, the arts, and the technology and the science, right? When these three entities come together, you have a third space growing in between the disciplines, in between them. When they match artists and science, the intersection of these two words is just researchers, means people that is curious. And then, of course, you have the public. It's very quite hard to imagine this match, but you can find it. And by imagining and building also this possibility, these spaces together, then these three words can match. What I like to find myself in this kind of description is in the resonation that these kind of words may have together. And when you do science communication through artistic and creative languages, I think you can find this resonation in people because you care about how to communicate. It's not just a piece of art, it's just there alone and nobody there to explain what it is. So I like to be this kind of people that may help to deliver the message or at least facilitate. So I love to find, as a curator, to find these projects that they have already this kind of essence inside.
I like that you tie in society because, in this conversation, we're talking a lot about artists and working with scientists. But really, when we communicate, it's also to the people who have no clue about what we might be talking about. What is the response from society that you often encounter?
We don't know what Art-Sci is. It's not mandatory that they know. If it's something that catches the curiosity, it's okay. Sometimes the typical response is they are stuck by the installation. They watch it and maybe they don't understand, but they are captured already. If I am nearby, then I can start a conversation. And once I explain the whole thing, they are, wow, wow. So yeah, I love to be there and to facilitate the message.
For your own journey and how you've been able to go from chemistry all the way to the point now, I think I'm actually so mesmerized by how you're able to do this practically.
But you have plenty of time to do it.
But it's just so inspiring that there's actually a way for this to be done. I mean, for people who are looking to even get into this kind of open mindset where you kind of just take things on, how do you
No, no, it's not. Don't think about like this.
how should I think about it? Tell
Yes, no, in the sense that from the way you speak, you have really clear ideas, and when you answer me, the things are specifically that, and so you know what they're talking about, which is a good thing. But maybe I'm asking, maybe you tend to plan in advance a lot.
oh yeah, I'm a planner.
Now I can talk about what I did, but it was not planned at all
Right.
because it's not possible to plan something like this. It's too diverse. Two times my life would really put me in a hard time. I cannot foresee that. You cannot tell who you will be in 5 years. You will be a different person. So for you can plan, you can put the basis, but then you have to just go like you're doing. Come on. I mean, it's good to have a direction. So we will not lose yourself in the way. This happens, and then you have new ideas, and then you have to be able to reshape your own original idea, not to get too much attracted to that you don't want to change it. So in this way, it's good to have a direction again, a common vision, but that's enough. Objectives are something that may change every day. I'm lucky for many things, for many reasons, but I'm lucky also to be here to speak with you about these things. And the more I speak, I recognize, yeah, I did something in my life. Okay. But still, the process was like sometimes completely random wandering for no reason. So that's why I'm lucky, because even in that wandering, I was helped by other people not to lose myself. Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find what you're looking for. Yes. It's not a receipt that I can tell to people that do like this. It's not organizable.
I like that you say certain things are enough. Your team of people, you have a vision and experimentation, and that's enough. You have a direction, and that's enough. I think that's a great answer because, like you say, you can't plan this kind of stuff, especially with the way that art science is moving. And there's so many opportunities that are coming up, even with your organization, with the foundation. I feel like there really is a future for how people can, first of all, encounter the work that we do, but also put themselves in the work. I just like to end on this final way of thinking that you mentioned in our first discussion that you feel a personal mission to raise a generation, to support a generation, to have cultural tools to move forward in the world, whether it is art and science or just any way of thinking. I'd love to hear you expand on that and where that desire is coming from and how you see that really shaping people's lives.
I find myself probably in a position now that I would like to tell somebody else what I have talked during my years, and that's it. It's a natural way to communicate with people. I did this. I have this idea. What do you think? So in this way, talking as a teacher now, yes, of course, if you are talking with the kids or high school teenagers, I love that they grow up with this cultural tool. I mean, with the possibility to engage with all amenities in this society, politics, social skills, everything. Cultural tool means that you can also choose which kind of destiny that political decision should have or not, and be aware of what's going on, engage in a conversation, debate. So this is a cultural tool. And in my experience, when I was a kid, I remember a lot of people that made me do things with my hands, and had workshops that blow up my mind, or even open a little door that then became bigger after years and years. So I'd like to replicate this. And this is also a way to wake up in the morning and think, okay, I have to do something.
Francesco's journey through art science didn't come from a grand plan. It was a little direction here, a bit of curiosity there, plus a willingness to stay open, and the rest found its own way through. Serendipity isn't luck in the way we usually mean it. It's what happens when an environment is generous enough to allow you to follow something worth pursuing when it appears. That's really what we mean when we talk about cultural tools. Not a fixed path, but the capacity to sit in the in-between, to listen past your own ego, and to recognize a moment worth acting on. That's a skill, and it's one that can be taught, practiced, and passed on to the next generation of people who don't want to choose between one world and another. And with that, we've reached the end of this episode of Art-Sci Currents Season 2. If today's conversation sparked something in you, whether that's a question, a collaboration, or a new way of seeing your own path, well, that's exactly what we're here to do. Art scientists may come from different disciplines, but we share a language of curiosity, creativity, and connection. This episode was proudly produced by the CreArt Foundation for Art Science Innovation. I'm your host and founder, Nisia John, and this podcast could not be complete without the volunteer support of Broom Butler, our lead project assistant, audio editing by Andrea Gutierrez. If you've enjoyed this discussion, share with someone you know. You can find more conversations, projects, and opportunities to get involved with art science at www.creart.ca. That's www.crearte.ca. Until next time, stay curious, stay interdisciplinary, and let's keep the art science current in motion.